Today's gospel is from St. Mark, chapter 8, and this account is also found in Luke and Matthew. The title in the Orthodox Study Bible is Jesus' Work, His Passions and Resurrection. So when we look at where this falls within the time space of the liturgical year and also within just the Gospel of Mark and what's before it and what's after it, sometimes it's good when you're reading a passage to just look ahead a little bit and behind to see where we are. So Jesus is trying to tell his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem. This is what it precludes this passage, that the gospel that we read today, and that he must suffer and be killed, right? So he's gathered his disciples, and he's coming. He knows what's coming for him. Jesus knows that he has to die on the cross, right? And he has to be handed over and judged. And he's trying to tell his disciples, right? And of course, their eyes are not fully open to what's going on. So what do they say? Well, what are you talking about? That's not true, right? And that's what Peter says to him, right? Peter pulls him aside and says, Jesus, that's not going to happen, right? Everything's fine, Peter must say, well, look, we haven't done any crimes. We know that people don't like us, but we're not going to, you're not going to get killed over this. And what does Jesus tell him? Jesus calls him the devil and tells him to get behind him, right? He tells him to get out of his way because he's on this mission, right? He already has this path set in life, Jesus does, from his Father, right? And so he tells Peter to stand aside. And Peter does, and this perplexes everyone a little bit, as most talking or parables with Jesus. It's a little hard for us to understand even 2,000 years later, and also if it just happened the day before, right? And Peter was walking with him. And the passage after this, so the gospel after this, is the Transfiguration, right? The Transfiguration where they go up to Mount Tabor, and they see Jesus transformed into lights, and then talking with Moses and Elijah, and they want to build the tent. So they see this miraculous thing happen right in front of them of the Transfiguration. So in between this, he's trying to explain, this gospel today, he's trying to explain to them about believing in him, right? In people's faith, and putting their trust in him. And he's trying to explain in many ways. And if we go through the Gospels and we go through the Bible, that's what, it seems like it's repetitious in some parts because it's about faith and it's about trust and it's about love. But those are the important things that Jesus has to teach. And he has to teach it to all of us in our own way of learning, right? When we went to school, a lot of us learned 2 + 2 = 4, right? Well, sometimes today you look at your kid's paper or you look on something online and they have 2 dots, dot, dot, plus dot, dot, and equals 4. And you're like, well, what are all those dots and dashes? And it even gets a little bit more complex when they're doing multiplication of 3 numbers. And they come out with the same answer that we do, but they do it a little bit differently. And some of us just skip all that paperwork and just go to the calculator. Some are just talking into our phones to get the answer of what is 20% of my restaurant so I can get a tip and give it to the person. I want to get out of it as quickly as I can. So we all learn and understand the world a little bit differently, right? All of the things that have happened to us through our own life, for the goods and the bads, have affected us, right? We are all God's people on one level, but we are all individual people on a separate level. So God and Jesus is trying to explain to them. He's speaking about the life on earth and the life in heaven, right? He's talking about giving up everything to enter the kingdom of heaven. But he's just saying it in a little bit of a different way. What does it mean to gain the whole world but to lose your soul, right? What does it mean to have the biggest house and the best car and the fanciest clothes and the biggest jewelry and the best job and all the hair on your head and all those things? No offense, Rich. But those are the things that we strive for 168 hours outside of the church, right? And it seems like we're here for a long time, right? I remember when I was just becoming Orthodox, I thought, well, I got to dedicate like half my day to this. This is a long day. So I understand where most people are coming from. But as we grow in faith, right, the time goes quickly. Say, church is over already, right? And 2 hours has gone by, and we're back to entering to the real world. So those 2 hours that we spend here, we try to carry on throughout the week. And we are blessed in Lent to be able to have more celebrations, right? To have more church time, to have a pre-sanctified in the midweek, and Compline and Akathis, and Vespers always is a meaningful thing. So that's what Jesus is talking about. Don't focus so much on what you have here today. Don't accumulate everything, because it's about your soul and your salvation. But that doesn't mean that we have to sell everything and walk around in sackcloth and be the traveling man, right, or the traveling woman. We have to have a home to live in, right? We have to have food to eat. We have to have a vehicle to drive and transportation and ways to get around, right? And we have to have a job to support all this. But that doesn't mean we have to have the fanciest car. It's nice, right? Maybe we can visit someone that has the fanciest car. Or we don't have to have the biggest house or the best house. We can just have what suits our needs, right? And the same thing with technology, right? It's about using what we have for technology appropriately. There's a lot of things going on today. There's a lot of course, there's always studies about children and the effects on screen time and scrolling and all these different things. But it's also true for adults, right? We can just sit away wasting hours looking through our phones, and it's somewhat relaxing, right? It kind of takes your mind away from things. And that's fine, because we all need a break once in a while, right? We need to be informed, and we need to know what's going on, but we can't let it take over our whole life, right? We need to still concentrate on reading a book or looking up a saint and discovering what the 199 martyrs means for today's saint that we commemorate. What are they talking about? And the beautiful thing about the internet and the phone is you can get the answer probably within, if we're good, right, maybe about 5 minutes. Hopefully. Hopefully it's not in another language that we have to translate, but it could be, right? Those things happen when you do research like that. So that's what Jesus is talking about, right? Giving up everything to have the life that we want, right? To be closer to God, to live in His glory. And He's explaining it to His disciples. And He is trying to tell them how to do this, right? And one of the things that He's referencing is to take up our cross, right? We have the cross here today that commemorate. We all have crosses around our necks or within our cars or in our homes, right? But what does it mean to take up our cross, right? We think about it, sometimes we just see it, and sometimes now the cross is just a symbol. Yeah, that's where Jesus died for our sins, and that's great. But to the next level of taking up our cross ourselves, right? What are we going to do to emulate being on the cross? And if we look into the scriptures, they again mentioned it yesterday about Galatians. I went to Galatians 6 on your Uncle Tony's advice. Galatians 6, Tony Bashir, who's from West Roxbury, is a great person. He actually mentioned St. Michael's Catuit yesterday also when he was speaking. He wasn't a speaker, he was making a comment to a question. He mentioned St. Michael's Catuit when he came down here, I believe probably to do the mission statement, right? That's probably what he does. So he remembers us, and we're all remembered in our other churches. So we went to Galatians, and he was talking about how to live a godly way of life, right? And I think sometimes we forget about how to live a godly way of life, and when we see the cross and what we should think about. So I just wrote down a few of them to live a godly way of life, to walk in the Spirit, to love, to be joyful, have self-control, right? Many times, we don't have self-control. We just say whatever comes out of our mind. When we see somebody and we automatically label them as to what they are and what they're doing, and we have suspicions about them, and we don't have self-control. And we don't, all of a sudden, we're not loving anymore, we're not joyful, we're not peaceful, we're not kind. One little thing, and we're way off the path. We just turned left at the cross, right? And even Jesus, when he was on the cross, when he spoke to his mother, these are now your sons, and sons, these are your mother, right? Kindful, peaceful. When he saved the thief, right? I'll see you in heaven today. Kind, peaceful, even in his such despair, right? But we just lose it in an instant. So that's what we should think about when we see the cross and to take up our cross. It's not just wood. It's a method of Christ's death for our sins, right? And we can't forget that. It's not just a piece of wood. It's reference for the contrast within the hymns and within the praises, right? That it is just a piece of wood. So today, let us think about the cross, and throughout this week and the rest of Lent, try to keep those virtues from Galatians chapter 5, was it? 6? 6, I think, chapter 6, in our minds, and maybe take a peek at them when we're scrolling through and we're all done looking at cat videos. Look at Galatians. What was it that Father talking about Galatians? Galatians chapter 5, hit the button. It's going to be right in front of you. And just take a quick look. It doesn't matter, at this point, it doesn't matter which translation you get, because you're just reading it for reference.